Cream wasn't just a band. Cream was the band. Welcome back to the Deep Cut, where we don't just explore the depths, we play the depths. It's a little bit like being a music critic, except we're not just talking the talk. We're walking the walk, and we're rocking the rock. Today we are highlighting a huge band, a very well-known band. The band is not the Deep Cut. The song is the Deep Cut. Today we will be exploring Deserted Cities of the Heart. You see, in the 60s, I wasn't there, okay, but people tell me. In a lot of ways, it was a very idealistic time. You know, that mid to late 60s time, it was an era where people were really reimagining a lot of things that people didn't think about. Things that had just been the way that they always were. And it's hard to argue that that was ever better explored than through the medium of music. A little insight into what Cream meant culturally in their context. See, rock and roll was kind of goofy teenager music. It's so hard to imagine this being true, but it was. And at a certain point, some of these musicians and stuff, they weren't teenagers anymore. They were really wanting to do something that wasn't so frivolous. Something that was like legit. You know, you get to a certain level and you can't just keep playing the same cliches over and over again, or you're just going to drive yourself crazy. Many bands in the late 60s started to get to that point. Even the Beatles started to get to that point. That's why their last few albums were honestly really, really cool. But a band that exemplified this maybe better than anybody else was Cream. Cream was Eric Clapton, Ginger Baker, and of course, bringing up the low end, that's Jack Bruce right there. Jack Bruce was the Eric Clapton of bass. Eric Clapton was the Jack Bruce of guitar. And Ginger Baker was the Ginger Baker of drums. But like I said, the 60s were this very idealistic time. And as the music was starting to sort of mature, the culture sort of was too, in a very abrupt, jarring way. I don't know if this is going to land, but if you guys have ever seen the show Taxi, Christopher Lloyd's character, this is almost something you kind of forget, but Christopher Lloyd's character is supposed to be a burnout. He's this guy that had been like a hippie in the 60s. And we think of hippies, peace and love, headbands, peace signs, all that groovy stuff, when in fact that's actually not really what a lot of people thought of hippies. That's a very rose-colored, glorified picture of hippies. What really happened in some cases was you ended up with a whole bunch of like drug addicts and people that had taken enough drugs to basically lose their mind. The 70s really brought with it, especially in comparison to those ideal times, a lot of darkness, a lot of destruction. Really, in the 70s, that's the first time you start getting serial killers. We still know the names, like Ted Bundy, John Wayne Gacy, right? You also started to have cults and stuff. You know, the Manson family. We had the People's Temple. This was a dark time. So it's interesting that this ideal time kind of turned into this nightmare. Anyway, the reason I'm bringing all this up is it's as if there were some artists in that late 60s period that kind of saw through this idealism and really got almost a premonition of what was about to come. There's a few famous examples you could point to, but one of those bands was Cream, and one of those songs was Deserted Cities of the Heart. That is the song we are doing today. One of the awesome things about Cream is they were always a bit of a hard-edged band for a time when, you know, it was all peace and love and flowers and stuff. But really, this underrated track, it's got apocalyptic imagery, and it really felt like they were presaging what was about to happen to the world. I couldn't think of a better song to highlight and show all of you, since the idea of this show is to bring you music that maybe was a little bit overlooked, but significant. Today, I am bringing you Cream, deserted cities of the heart.
Upon this street where time has died, the golden dream you never tried. In times of old, in days gone by, if I could catch your glancing eye, it was on the way, on the road to dreams, yeah. Now my heart's drowning in lost streets, yeah. The street is cold, its trees are gone. The story's told, the dark has won. Once we set sail to catch a star, we had to fail, it was too far. It was on the way, on the road to dreams, yeah. Now my heart's drowned in those lost streets, yeah. I felt the wind shout like a drum. You said my friend loves it.